Hello, I'm SA, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
Empedocles of Agrigentum occupies a singular place in the history of thought, a figure straddling the worlds of pre-Socratic philosophy and nascent scientific inquiry. Born in a vibrant Greek colony of Aquarchus, Sicily, around 494 before the Common Era, his life and work represent a pivotal moment in the transition from mythological explanations of the cosmos to rational, evidence-based understanding. He stands as a poet, a statesman, a religious teacher, and, crucially, a natural philosopher whose cosmological vision profoundly shaped subsequent scientific thought. The pre-Socratic thinkers, active in the centuries leading up to Socrates, sought to identify the fundamental principles underlying the observable world. They moved away from the Homeric tradition of gods and goddesses directly intervening in human affairs and natural phenomena, instead searching for underlying natural causes. Thinkers like Thales, Anaximander, and Anaximenes proposed single, unifying substances such as water, the aether and the boundless, and air, respectively, as the archie, the fundamental principle from which all things originate. These early attempts at cosmological explanation, while rudimentary by modern standards, mark a crucial step towards a scientific worldview, one that seeks to explain the universe through observation and reason. Empedocles grappled with a particularly thorny problem that arose from the philosophy of Parmenides. Parmenides, a highly influential pre-Socratic, argued that being is one, unchanging, and indivisible. This presented a significant challenge to explaining the evident change and diversity in the world around us. If being is truly unchanging, how can we account for the constant flux and transformation that we observe? How can things come into being and pass away? This paradox, the apparent conflict between reason and experience, formed the central intellectual problem that Empedocles sought to resolve. Its solution lay in a radical proposition that the world is composed of multiple, eternal, and unchanging fundamental substances. These he identified as the four roots of all things: earth, air, fire, and water. He posited that these elements themselves never come into being nor pass away. They are the unchanging constituents of reality, echoing Parmenides' insistence on the permanence of being. However, these roots combine and separate in varying proportions, driven by external forces, giving rise to the appearance of change, growth, and decay that we perceive in the world. The coming to be of a new entity, for instance, is not a true creation from nothing, but rather a rearrangement of the existing elements. Similarly, destruction is the separation of these elements back into their constituent parts. Empedocles did not simply propose this theory as a philosophical abstraction. He sought to provide empirical support for his ideas, drawing on his observations of the natural world. A particularly compelling example is his study of the clepsydra, an ancient water-lifting device. The clepsydra consisted of a bowl with a narrow neck and small holes at the bottom. When submerged in water, water would enter the bowl. If the hole at the top was covered, the water would remain inside even when the bowl was lifted out of the water. Empedocles observed that it was the air pressure preventing the water from escaping. This observation led him to conclude that air is a corporeal substance possessing tangible force, even though it is invisible. This seemingly simple experiment provided crucial evidence for his theory, demonstrating that air, one of his four fundamental elements, is a real and powerful entity rather than an empty void. The clepsydra experiment, therefore, served as a tangible demonstration of the materiality of air, bolstering his broader cosmological theory. This concept of fundamental, unchanging constituents, combined and recombined to form the diversity of the world, foreshadows later atomist theories developed by Lucretius and Democritus. While Empedocles' roots differed considerably from the indivisible atoms of later thinkers, the underlying principle of a finite number of fundamental building blocks remains a striking parallel. Lucretius and Democritus, following Empedocles' lead in seeking a mechanistic explanation for observed phenomena, proposed that all matter is composed of indivisible and indestructible atoms moving in a void. The arrangement and combination of these atoms account for the different properties of macroscopic objects, while Empedocles' elements possessed inherent qualities. Atomists stripped their atoms of all qualities except shape, size, and motion, creating a more abstract and purely mechanistic model of the universe. Nevertheless, Empedocles' influence on the development of atomism is undeniable, as he paved the way for a worldview in which complex phenomena arise from the interaction of simpler, fundamental components. To explain the forces driving the combination and separation of the four roots, Empedocles introduced the concept of love and strife. Love is the force that brings the elements together, creating harmonious mixtures and complex structures. Strife, conversely, is the force that separates the elements, leading to dissolution and decay. These two forces are in constant tension, their interplay governing the cyclical processes of creation and destruction that characterize the cosmos. Empedocles envisioned a cosmic cycle in which love initially reigns supreme, creating a perfect sphere in which all the elements are perfectly blended. Strife then gradually enters the sphere, disrupting the harmony and leading to the separation of the elements and the emergence of the diverse world we experience. Eventually, strife reaches its peak, completely separating the elements, before love begins to reassert itself, initiating a new cycle of creation and combination. While love and strife may seem like abstract, almost mythological forces, they represent Empedocles' attempt to provide a dynamic mechanism for change within his framework of unchanging elements. Empedocles' theory of the four elements had a profound and lasting impact on subsequent scientific thought. His ideas were taken up and developed by later philosophers and scientists, most notably Aristotle. Aristotle adopted Empedocles' four elements, but he modified them by associating them with pairs of qualities: earth was cold and dry, water was cold and wet, air was hot and wet, and fire was hot and dry. This association of elements with qualities became a cornerstone of Aristotelian physics and cosmology, which dominated Western scientific thought for nearly 2 millennia. Aristotle's system, building directly on Empedocles' foundation, provided a comprehensive framework for understanding the composition of matter, the nature of change, and the structure of the universe. From the composition of everyday objects to the processes of digestion and respiration, the four elements provided a ubiquitous explanatory tool. The enduring influence of Empedocles' theory, mediated through Aristotle, is a testament to its power and its ability to provide a coherent and seemingly comprehensive account of the natural world. Empedocles' focus on unchanging fundamental substances was directly influenced by Parmenides' emphasis on the unchanging nature of being. Parmenides' poem on nature presented a stark dichotomy between truth and opinion, arguing that true reality is one, indivisible, and immutable. Empedocles, while rejecting Parmenides' monism, retained the core idea that fundamental reality must be unchanging. He accepted Parmenides' argument that something cannot come from nothing, nor can it truly be destroyed. Therefore, the basic constituents of reality, the four roots, must be eternal and unchanging. Empedocles, in essence, sought to reconcile Parmenides' metaphysical insights with the observable reality of change and diversity. He achieved this by proposing that change is not a fundamental feature of reality, but rather a consequence of the mixing and separation of unchanging elements. This synthesis of Parmenidean principles with empirical observation represents a crucial step in the development of a scientific worldview, one that seeks to ground its explanations in both reason and experience. Empedocles' commitment to unchanging fundamental constituents necessitated a novel explanation for how we, as perceiving beings, interact with a world seemingly in constant flux. He grappled with the fundamental question of perception: how do our senses provide us with information about the external world? This was a problem that occupied many pre-Socratic thinkers, each offering their own unique account. Empedocles proposed what is often termed the effluences theory of perception. This theory posits that all objects continuously emit tiny particles, streams of what might be called effluences, which travel through the air and enter the body through the pores of our sensory organs. These pores are not uniform, but rather are specifically sized to receive particular types of particles. This specificity is crucial to Empedocles' model. The mechanism of perception, according to Empedocles, relies on a principle of like knows like. The four roots, earth, air, fire, and water, are present both in the external objects emitting the effluences and within our own bodies. When the particles emitted by an object enter a sensory organ, they are attracted to the corresponding element within that organ. For instance, particles of fire emitted by a flame will be drawn to the fire already present in the eye. This attraction creates a sensation, which is then interpreted as perception. It's a process akin to a lock and key, where the shape and composition of the effluence must match the structure and elemental composition of the pore and the receiving sensory organ. Consider Empedocles' explanation of vision. He believed that the eye contains fire, one of the four roots. Objects, similarly, emit particles containing fire. When these fiery particles from an object enter the eye, they are drawn to the fire already present, creating the sensation of sight. This is a departure from earlier theories, such as that of Anaxagoras, who proposed that perception occurs through opposites. Anaxagoras believed that we perceive hot because we have cold within us, and vice versa. Empedocles, conversely, argued that we perceive fire because we have fire within us, and that the fiery effluences stimulate this internal fire. Light, in this view, is not an external entity illuminating objects, but rather an active emission from both the object and the eye itself. The eye, in a sense, reaches out to meet the object. This theory, while ingenious for its time, presents several limitations when viewed through the lens of modern science. The idea of objects continuously emitting particles that directly enter our bodies is inconsistent with our understanding of light, sound, and other forms of sensory input. We now know that vision, for example, relies on electromagnetic radiation reflecting off objects and stimulating photoreceptor cells in the retina. Sound involves vibrations in the air that are detected by the ear. The specificity of pores and the attraction of light to light also lacks empirical support. Modern biology reveals a far more complex system of sensory transduction involving specialized cells, neural pathways, and electrochemical signals. Despite these limitations, Empedocles' theory of perception represents a significant step forward in the history of science. He attempted to provide a mechanistic explanation for a fundamental phenomenon, moving away from purely mythological or supernatural accounts. He sought to ground perception in the material properties of objects and the structure of the human body. His emphasis on the elements as fundamental constituents and their role in perception reflects a commitment to a reductionist approach, attempting to explain complex phenomena in terms of simpler, underlying components. Albion of Croton, a physician and philosopher who predated Empedocles, conducted early physiological investigations that may have influenced Empedocles' ideas about perception. Albion is credited with dissecting animals and identifying the optic nerve as the pathway for vision, a discovery that suggested a material basis for sensory experience. This emphasis on the physical mechanisms of perception likely resonated with Empedocles and contributed to the development of his effluences theory. Empedocles' theory of perception, in turn, had a lasting impact on subsequent philosophers, most notably Plato and Aristotle. Plato, in his dialogue Timaeus adopted and modified Empedocles' effluences theory to explain vision. Plato envisioned vision as gentle fire emanating from the eye, mingling with the light of day, and encountering effluences from objects. He retained the idea that perception involves a matching between internal and external elements, but he also introduced a more sophisticated geometry to explain how we perceive shapes and distances. Aristotle, while critical of Empedocles' specific mechanism of effluences, acknowledged the importance of his attempt to provide a material explanation of perception. In his treatise on the soul de animare, Aristotle developed his own theory of perception, which emphasized the role of the sensory organs in receiving the form of an object without taking on its matter. Aristotle rejected the idea that objects emit particles that enter our bodies, arguing instead that the sensory organs undergo a change in state that corresponds to the properties of the perceived object. While diverging from Empedocles' particulars, Aristotle's work demonstrates the enduring influence of Empedocles' quest to understand the physical basis of sensory experience, a quest that laid the groundwork for future investigations into the workings of the human senses. Empedocles wrestled with the fundamental question of the very origin and ongoing evolution of the cosmos. He sought to explain how the universe came to be and how it continues to change, a problem previously addressed, albeit differently, by thinkers like Anaximander. Anaximander posited the apparent and undefined, boundless substance as the source of all things from which opposites separate and then return in a cyclical process of creation and destruction. Empedocles, while differing in specifics, echoed the cyclical theme, introducing a dynamic interplay of forces to drive cosmic change. Empedocles proposed a unique solution centered on the cyclical interaction of two opposing forces, love and strife. Love, in this context, represents attraction, the force that binds elements together, creating unity and harmony. Strife, conversely, embodies repulsion, the force that separates and differentiates, leading to chaos and dissolution. These forces act upon the four fundamental elements: earth, air, fire, and water, resulting in a continuous cycle of cosmic construction and destruction. The Empedoclean cosmological cycle unfolds in distinct stages. Initially, there exists a state of perfect unity, the sphere. In this primordial condition, love reigns supreme, and all four elements are perfectly mingled, forming a homogeneous whole. There are distinctions within the sphere. It is a state of undifferentiated potential, a cosmic seed containing all possibilities. The cycle progresses as strife begins to intrude upon the sphere. This intrusion is gradual, a slow infiltration of discord into the harmonious blend. As strife gains influence, the elements begin to separate, initiating the process of differentiation and the emergence of distinct entities. The elements are pulled apart, creating a swirling vortex of separation. As strife ascends to dominance, the elements become completely separated and distinct. Love is entirely banished, and the cosmos descends into a state of utter chaos and fragmentation. Each element exists in isolation, devoid of any connection or harmony with the others. This state represents the nadir of the cycle, a point of maximum disorder. The cycle does remain static. Love inevitably begins to reemerge, initiating a reversal of the separating trend. As love's influence grows, it starts to draw the elements back together, initiating a new phase of integration and harmonization. The separated elements begin to recombine, forming new combinations and structures. This cyclical process is not merely an abstract cosmological theory. Empedocles employed it to explain the formation of living beings. In the initial stages of strife's dominance, as the elements are separating, there arises a chaotic mixture of body parts, limbs, heads, and torsos, scattered randomly. These isolated parts wander aimlessly, seeking connection. As love begins its return, these scattered limbs and organs are drawn together. Initially, the combinations are haphazard and monstrous, creatures with mismatched parts and bizarre forms. These early beings are imperfect and unsustainable, quickly disappearing from existence. Over time, as love's influence increases and the mixing becomes more refined, more harmonious and functional combinations emerge. These beings, with properly integrated parts and balanced elemental composition, are capable of survival and reproduction. This marks the emergence of recognizable life forms, adapted to their environment and capable of perpetuating their kind. This emergence is gradual, a process of trial and error guided by the increasing influence of love. Empedocles' cyclical view of the universe carries profound philosophical implications. It suggests a cosmos in constant flux, undergoing perpetual cycles of creation and destruction. There is no ultimate beginning or end, but rather a continuous transformation driven by the dynamic interplay of opposing forces. This contrasts with linear models of creation, which posit a single, definitive origin point. This cyclical perspective also implies a certain inherent instability in the universe. Harmony and order are never permanent states, but rather temporary achievements subject to the inevitable intrusion of chaos and dissolution. The universe is a dynamic system, always oscillating between opposing tendencies. Furthermore, Empedocles' cosmology suggests a deep interconnectedness between all things. The elements are not isolated entities, but rather components of a larger cosmic system, constantly interacting and influencing each other. Love and strife are universal forces that permeate all aspects of existence, shaping the formation and dissolution of everything from stars to living beings. The concept of love as a cosmic force of attraction has interesting parallels with later scientific ideas. While in Empedocles, love is a more general principle encompassing physical and emotional attraction, it foreshadows later attempts to understand the forces that bind matter together, culminating in the modern understanding of gravity and electromagnetism. Similarly, strife, as a force of repulsion, anticipates concepts like entropy and the tendency towards disorder in physical systems. Lucretius, the Roman poet and philosopher, drew heavily from Empedocles' framework in his epic poem to redrawn Natura on the nature of things. Lucretius adopted Empedocles' four-element theory in his concept of love and strife as fundamental forces driving the cycle of creation and destruction. Lucretius employed this framework to explain the natural world, rejecting supernatural explanations and emphasizing the material basis of all phenomena. Lucretius's poem served as a major vehicle for transmitting Empedocles' ideas to later generations, ensuring their continued influence in Western thought. Empedocles' cosmological cycle, with its interplay of love and strife, offered a compelling explanation for the origin and evolution of the universe. This framework, while superseded by modern scientific cosmology, represents a significant step in the development of scientific thought, demonstrating an early attempt to provide a rational and material explanation for the cosmos and its ongoing transformations. His ideas resonated through subsequent thinkers, leaving a lasting mark on the history of science and philosophy. The cosmos, in Empedocles' view, was a dynamic arena where love and strife perpetually contended, shaping the world and its phenomena. His theories, while diverging significantly from contemporary scientific understanding, provided a framework for comprehending the universe through the lens of natural processes. This emphasis on material explanations, devoid of supernatural intervention, marked a pivotal development in the trajectory of scientific thought. Now, shifting our focus from the grand scale of the cosmos to the intricate workings of the human body, we find Empedocles similarly engaged in seeking rational explanations for life, health, and disease. Empedocles grappled with fundamental questions regarding the nature of life itself. What distinguished living beings from inanimate objects? What processes sustained life, and what caused its cessation? His inquiries led him to develop theories relating to respiration, blood circulation, and the very composition of bones, representing early, albeit rudimentary, attempts at physiological understanding. These theories, while lacking the precision and empirical validation of modern medicine, offered a novel perspective of the inner workings of the body. Respiration, in Empedocles' view, was a process of exchange. He posited that the body was permeated with many pores, invisible to the naked eye, which allowed for the intake and expulsion of air. This exchange, he believed, was essential for maintaining life. The air entered the body through these pores, reaching the internal organs and providing them with the necessary sustenance. Conversely, waste products and noxious vapors were expelled through the same pores. This theory, while lacking the detail of modern understanding of the respiratory system, recognized the crucial role of air in sustaining life. It also attempted to provide a mechanistic explanation for how this exchange occurred, proposing the existence of pores as the physical conduits for air movement. This concept of pores facilitating the exchange of substances within the body to be seen as a precursor to later ideas about cellular membranes and their role in regulating the passage of molecules. The idea of respiration as an exchange of air through pause, though speculative, offered a tangible model for understanding a vital physiological process. It moved beyond purely mystical or religious explanations, seeking a material basis for the phenomenon of breathing. While the specific mechanism proposed by Empedocles differs drastically from our current understanding involving alveoli and gas exchange in the lungs, the underlying principle of exchange remains central. This early attempt to provide a rational explanation for respiration showcases Empedocles' commitment to understanding the natural world through observation and reasoned speculation. Empedocles also ventured into the realm of blood circulation, proposing a model that, while distinct from William Harvey's later discovery, nonetheless represented an early attempt to understand the movement of blood within the body. He envisioned blood circulation as a fluctuating movement around the heart, rather than a continuous, unidirectional flow. A heart, in his view, was the central organ responsible for distributing blood throughout the body. He believed that blood ebbed and flowed from the heart, reaching the various organs and tissues before returning to the heart to complete the cycle. This ebb and flow was influenced by the elements within the blood, with love and strife playing a role in regulating its movement. This model, though inaccurate by modern standards, acknowledged the importance of the heart in the circulatory system and recognized that blood was not static, but rather in constant motion. This concept of blood movement, even in its rudimentary form, was a significant step towards a more comprehensive understanding of the circulatory system. Empedocles' ideas about blood circulation, despite their limitations, provided a foundation upon which later thinkers could build. His emphasis on the heart as the central organ and the recognition of blood's dynamic nature paved the way for future discoveries in the field of physiology. Furthermore, Empedocles proposed theories regarding the composition of bones. He believed that bones were formed from a combination of the four elements, with earth and fire being the dominant components. The proportion of these elements, he argued, determined the strength and density of the bones. He also suggested that the marrow within bones played a role in nourishing the body. While this specific elemental composition is not aligned with our current understanding of bone structure, which emphasizes calcium, phosphate, and collagen, Empedocles' attempt to explain the physical properties of bones through their material composition reflects a scientific approach. The Hippocratic corpus, a collection of medical texts written around the same time as Empedocles, shares some thematic similarities with his ideas. The Hippocratic writers also emphasized the importance of elemental balance within the body, believing that health was maintained by a harmonious equilibrium of these elements. Disease, in their view, arose from an imbalance or excess of one or more elements. This shared emphasis on elemental balance suggests a potential mutual influence between Empedocles and the Hippocratic school of medicine. They both sought to understand health and disease through the lens of material composition and equilibrium, reflecting a broader intellectual trend in ancient Greece. Galen, a prominent physician in the Roman era, drew upon Empedocles' concept of elemental balance in his own medical theories. Galen's theories, which became dominant for centuries, emphasized the importance of maintaining a balance of the four humours: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, within the body. These humours were associated with the four elements, and Galen believed that health was maintained by a proper balance of these humours. Disease, in his view, resulted from an imbalance or excess of one or more humours. Galen's reliance on the concept of elemental balance demonstrates the enduring influence of Empedocles' ideas on subsequent medical thought. Galen synthesized and systematized existing medical knowledge, and Empedocles' framework provided a valuable conceptual tool for understanding the complexities of the human body. Empedocles' medical and biological insights, while limited by the scientific knowledge of his time, represent significant attempts to understand the nature of life, health, and disease through rational inquiry. His theories on respiration, blood circulation, and the composition of bones, though rudimentary from a modern perspective, offered early physiological explanations. His emphasis on elemental composition and balance, shared by the Hippocratic writers and later adopted by Galen, demonstrates his lasting influence on the development of medical thought. These theories, while superseded by modern scientific understanding, laid the groundwork for future advancements in the field of medicine. His contributions to medicine and biology, alongside his cosmological theories, showcase his commitment to understanding the natural world through observation and reasoned speculation. He sought to provide material explanations for phenomena that were often attributed to supernatural forces, marking a pivotal shift in the history of scientific thought. Empedocles, in essence, was a pioneer in the quest to understand the universe and our place within it, both on a cosmic scale and within the intricate workings of our own bodies. Having explored his attempts to understand the material world, we now turn to his equally compelling views on the nature of the soul and its journey through reincarnation. Empedocles' intellectual curiosity extended beyond the realm of observable phenomena, encompassing profound questions about the nature of existence, the fate of the soul, and the potential for achieving a higher state of being. His religious and philosophical perspectives, particularly his belief in reincarnation, offer a unique lens through which to understand his worldview. This doctrine, central to his thought, posits that souls undergo a cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, inhabiting various forms of life as a consequence of their actions and choices. The problem Empedocles addressed was a fundamental human quest to comprehend the meaning of life and the afterlife. He sought to provide an explanation for suffering, injustice, and the apparent randomness of fate, suggesting that these experiences are determined by the accumulated karma of past lives. This perspective offered a framework for understanding the human condition within a larger cosmic context where individual actions have far-reaching consequences that extend beyond a single lifetime. Empedocles' concept of reincarnation is intricately linked to his theory of the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. He believed that the soul, a composite entity formed from these elements, is subject to the forces of love and strife, which govern the cycles of cosmic creation and destruction. As souls journey through different incarnations, they are influenced by these forces, shaping their experiences and determining their future destinies. The degree to which a soul is purified from the influence of strife dictates its proximity to divine status. Tangible examples of Empedocles' belief in reincarnation can be found in the fragments of his poems that have survived to this day. In one passage, he recounts his own past lives, claiming to have been a boy, a girl, a bush, a bird, and a fish in the sea. These vivid descriptions offer a glimpse into his personal experiences and underscore his his conviction that the soul is capable of inhabiting a wide range of forms. Such personal reflections, while unverifiable, provide invaluable insight into the depth of his conviction and the personal significance he attributed to the concept of transmigration. The ethical implications of Empedocles' belief in reincarnation are profound. He emphasized the importance of avoiding bloodshed and embracing a vegetarian lifestyle, arguing that all living beings are interconnected and that harming one creature is akin to harming oneself. This ethical stance stems from his belief that souls can transmigrate between different species, blurring the lines between humans and animals. The consumption of meat, therefore, was seen as a violation of this interconnectedness and a hindrance to the soul's purification. This emphasis on ethical conduct and reverence for all life forms reflects a worldview that is both compassionate and ecologically conscious. Empedocles' advocacy for vegetarianism, a relatively uncommon practice in his time, highlights his commitment to aligning his actions with his philosophical beliefs. He saw the act of eating as a moral choice with implications for the soul's journey. By abstaining from meat, he sought to minimize harm and cultivate a greater sense of empathy for all living beings. This ethical stance, rooted in his belief in reincarnation, demonstrates his dedication to living a life of virtue and aligning himself with the forces of love and harmony. The Pythagorean tradition, with its emphasis on the transmigration of souls and the interconnectedness of all living things, likely exerted a significant influence on Empedocles' own views. Pythagoras and his followers believed that souls undergo a cycle of reincarnation as a form of purification, and they advocated for a vegetarian lifestyle as a means of avoiding bloodshed. Empedocles' adoption of these ideas suggests a direct intellectual lineage, with the Pythagorean tradition serving as a foundation for his own unique synthesis of philosophy, religion, and science. Empedocles' ideas about reincarnation resonated with later thinkers, including some Gnostic and Neoplatonic philosophers. These schools of thought, which emerged in the centuries following his death, embraced the concept of transmigration as a means of explaining the complexities of the human condition and the potential for spiritual transformation. Empedocles' influence can be seen in their emphasis on ethical conduct, purification, and the pursuit of divine knowledge as pathways to liberation from the cycle of rebirth. His enduring impact on these philosophical traditions underscores the lasting power of his ideas and their ability to inspire diverse interpretations across different historical contexts. His attempt to reconcile rational inquiry with mystical beliefs is a defining characteristic of his intellectual approach. He sought to provide scientific explanations for natural phenomena, while simultaneously embracing the spiritual dimensions of human existence. This synthesis is evident in his theory of the four elements, which serves as both a cosmological framework and a metaphor for the soul's journey through reincarnation. By integrating scientific observation with religious and philosophical insights, Empedocles sought to create a holistic understanding of the universe and our place within it. Empedocles' enduring legacy lies in his status as a polymath and a bridge between pre-Socratic thought and later philosophical traditions. His theories, while limited by the scientific knowledge of his time, paved the way for future advancements in the fields of medicine, biology, and cosmology. His emphasis on observation, experimentation, and rational explanation helped to establish a foundation for the scientific method, while his ethical and spiritual insights continue to resonate with those seeking meaning and purpose in life. The limitations of Empedocles' theories are readily apparent from a modern scientific perspective. His concept of the four elements, for example, has been superseded by the discovery of atoms and the periodic table. Similarly, his explanations for biological phenomena, such as respiration and reproduction, lack the precision and detail of modern physiology. Yet, despite these limitations, his contributions to the development of scientific thought remain significant. He sought to provide material explanations for natural phenomena, rejecting supernatural explanations and paving the way for future scientific inquiry. His influence extends beyond the realm of science, encompassing ethics, religion, and political thought. His advocacy for vegetarianism, his belief in reincarnation, and his emphasis on social harmony reflect a worldview that is both compassionate and forward-thinking. He saw the interconnectedness of all things and sought to promote a society based on justice, equality, and mutual respect. These ethical and political ideals, while not always fully realized in his own time, continue to inspire those seeking to create a more just and sustainable world. Empedocles' ability to synthesize diverse fields of knowledge into a coherent worldview is a testament to his intellectual breadth and depth. He was a scientist, a philosopher, a poet, a religious leader, and a political reformer, all rolled into one. This multifaceted approach allowed him to address complex problems from multiple perspectives, offering insights that would have been inaccessible to those with a narrow focus. His legacy is that of a visionary thinker who challenged conventional wisdom and sought to create a more comprehensive understanding of the universe and our place within it. His work stands as a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge is a multifaceted endeavor, requiring both rational inquiry and intuitive understanding. He demonstrated the value of integrating science, philosophy, and religion into a holistic worldview, one that recognizes the interconnectedness of all things and seeks to promote the well-being of both individuals and society. This integrated approach, while challenging to achieve, remains a valuable ideal for those seeking to navigate the complexities of the modern world and create a more sustainable and meaningful future.
We really appreciate you tuning in to this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.